What if one night of oysters could rebuild an entire coastline? On the surface, this is about the oyster reef restoration project that we did with Explore North Myrtle Beach last year, and I'm going to show you some behind the scenes and some reasonings why I decided to help participate in this project. I don't know if you know about this, but oysters are honestly the most extraordinary animals when it comes to marine science conservation. And we're not talking about this amount of water, not a couple drops. We're talking about millions of gallons of water on a daily basis being restored. When I started Thalos, really wanted to have a base for my marine science conservation needs. I wanted to have a place that I could showcase work that is in the marine science conservation world. To be able to showcase other organizations that there's better ways to showcase to donors or other organizations that you guys are doing good work. There's a place for you to go to showcase your story in your documentary film, because there's nothing that evokes better emotion than through story and some organic documentary work. My background is in marine science and I've adopted underwater filmmaking. I'm not into it as much, but I'm finding ways that I can kind of coexist both sides. I can use my degree and help marine science conservation work in a way that allows for me to use my expertise, my business savvy, marketing skills in order to kind of combine the two and help organizations showcase their role in the whole world of being able to be a marine science conservationist themselves. For me to be able to dive in organizations and helping them kind of showcase their message in a very clear way, you have to be able to do it artistically, you have to do it cinematically, whatever that means to you, and you have to be able to make sure that the message is showcased in a very clear and organic way. So there's a lot of facets to that. In order for it to be done right, sometimes you have to bring in a crew. At the time, the company was called 963 Film Group. It's changed to 963 & Co., but my crew was commissioned to be able to help work with Oyster Roast for the coast event that they had in 2024, was going to be able to benefit an oyster reef restoration project that they wanted to do off the coast of North Myrtle Beach. And what they did was they went into the marsh areas to be able to find a spot to be able to lay all these oyster bags. And through some of those conservation efforts, what you'll see over time is that those oysters are filtering out the water. So what North Myrtle Beach did is they brought in restaurants, city council members, other businesses, waterfront venues, in order to throw this oyster roast for the coast. And from that event, they were able to bag up all the oyster shells and then use them in recycling programs. And as you're placing these oyster bags that are kind of condensed, and the oysters themselves actually get repopulated, the water from the estuary kind of goes into them and gets recycled so that they actually builds up. It was really neat for my team to be able to work very closely with Explore North Myrtle Beach and also the DNR guys that came through to help with this project. What we ended up doing was we ended up partnering directly with Explore North Myrtle Beach, but they had these other partners come through and talk a little bit about the project, and we were the film team that helped produce a film in order to encapsulate that. So as part of the marketing efforts for this exact program, what we ended up doing was we ended up building out a marketing campaign for them in order to showcase exactly what's going on in different parts of the oyster reef restoration project itself. What we wanted to do is we wanted to drip information so that people can get engaged. Small pieces of content, whether it be micro content like reels or like short little cut downs of the bigger documentary. In order for the people to be engaged with the content, you have to drop these little pieces of content as you're kind of getting used to understanding what the actual project's about, as it leads up to the bigger documentary piece itself, to showcase exactly the benefit and the impact that this event actually had for the North Myrtle Beach coast. And then from that, we went ahead and pulled 30-second and a minute-long cut down so that we can use it in different ways, whether it be television ads, display ads, things like that. As we're talking about the benefits of all this, there are challenges when it comes to the actual filmmaking of this process. So logistically, we had to make sure that we had a variety of locations to be able to get these interviews, whether it be docks or whether it be other conservation areas like Russell Burgess or whatever it may be. A 2-camera setup for every interview, and we wanted to scrim every individual and then keep a balance on one side of them to kind of balance it out, and then have a very nice background in order to kind of encapsulate the short film itself. itself. For example, the DNR guy, we decided to interview him in the water itself. So that came with this whole list of challenges, putting C-stands into the marsh and the water, while making sure the waves weren't crashing anyone, while making sure all the camera gear wasn't getting wet at the same time either, was a massive challenge. It's something that was a little bit ambitious for the time being, but we ended up pulling it off with a slight little problem. We did have a little bit of a reflection in some of the sunglasses, so you can see one of the crew members themselves, but neither here nor there. Is a little bit of a chaotic moment. And budgets allow for us to have a certain production value. So it would have been nice to have more people from our team observing different cameras for themselves, but in the moment we only had so many people in the water and so many people on the boats, making sure that other things were taken care of at the same time. So as you're wrapping up the actual filming of this, you find yourself looking at the interviews and the footage and trying to figure out a way to piece it together in a very documentary format. And you have to have some kind of intro, you have to have some kind of hook to that intro, you have to have some way to dive into the reasonings why this film is taking place, and then you have to dive into backing it all up, maybe with stats and some graphics and maybe even some historical type things as well, and then wrap it up with the meaning of why this film is so important and what the effect of that actually is. Any documentary film, if you've ever seen one, typically have a couple of these different types of elements, and in order to capture those elements, it takes a lot of time in order to do that, and different ways in order to capture them as well. So why am I talking about all this? The simple answer is video production and documentary filmmaking go hand in hand. There's no better way to show change. There's no better way to communicate the work that you're doing. In order for us to make sure that your organization's mission is encapsulated the right way and showcased the right way, you have to find ways in order for people to see you, view you, and feel the change that you're bringing about within your organization. This oyster reef restoration project was just one example of the many that I plan on doing about marine science conservation. I'm looking for my next documentary, and I'm looking for the next thing for me to be able to showcase the efforts that different people are putting into the environment. What I want to do is I want to be able to shine light on those who are making efforts to make change possible. Thank you guys. I hope you guys dive right into the next episode where we are diving the Vermilion, and it is red snapper season, and we are going after some red snapper.